YouTube can throttle us.
They can suppress us.
But they can't stop a text message.
We lost a great man, President Trump said as White House flags dropped half-staff. That's the picture right there. Trump honored Lindsey Graham with dignity, with command, and with love of country. And within minutes, Margaret Cho jumped online with that vile from the closet to the coffin line. Read that again. A sitting senator dies and the ghouls sprint to the grave before the family can even breathe. Trump called Graham a friend who never stopped working. The internet sewer turned him into content. And wait until you hear the part about the Iranian target image from last week and the 4 p.m. secession move in South Carolina. You see, Kash Patel, he said every resource necessary is available as threats swirl around this death. And that's not a side note. I'm going to ask you to stop on that line with me. The FBI director didn't toss out a hallmark message and move on. Kash Patel locked federal weight behind this because Lindsey Graham isn't just any senator. He had pushed a Russian sanctions package. Iran-linked agitators had blasted out a target image with his name on it just last week. And foreign enemies never hide what they want. Then you stack that against Margaret Cho mocking the dead and the rumor peddlers on X turning a coffin into clickbait. You can feel the sickness. Trump stepped in like the adult in the room, lowered the flags and said everything for him was about work. It was about loving the country. That matters because South Carolina now faces a decision from Henry McMaster, and the seat cannot fall to some weak-kneed anti-Trump drifter while Americans' enemies sniff blood. And we are learning now this late-breaking news that Lindsey Graham's sister has been named U.S. Senator, interim senator, by Governor McMaster. President Trump supporting the move. Now, when a U.S. Senator dies and the noise machine starts feeding on confusion, you remember how many systems in this country are rigged the same way, including Medicare. The Medicare confusion industrial complex buries seniors in junk so they stay stuck. Chapter cuts through it. Simple by design, one call, one advisor. They look at your doctors, look at your prescriptions, your whole situation, and tell you the truth. No propaganda, just facts. Clarity matters here too because confusion protects the middlemen. But they work for you, not big insurance. So if you're already on the right plan, they'll say it. If not, they can help you. They can help you switch. It's free. It takes under 20 minutes. Last year, people who found new plans with Chapter saved an average of $1,100. There's a number on your screen there. Give them a call, 910-728-4109. In moments that matter, clarity beats the vultures every single time. So at 4 p.m., Henry McMaster picked Darlene Graham, Lindsey's own sister. And that detail stopped everybody cold because it's not just about mourning. This is about whether South Carolina locks in steadfastness while the mob howls and the rumor merchants keep feeding off chaos. And Trump didn't just praise Graham from a podium. He moved on secession too. So look at the contrast. Trump brings order, the vultures bring smears, and when we get to the Post, watch how quickly the internet filth and the foreign threat angle collide in the same ugly feed. Here's the actress Margaret Cho mocking Lindsey Graham's death and appears to wish that President Trump is next.
Bye, Lindsey. Bye, Lindsey Graham. From the closet to the coffin. Real seamless. Real seamless. Also, yeah, Mitch McConnell. So it's Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham. It does happen in threes. Hope.
Hope. You know what she's alluding to there, of course, right? I think we can all read between the lines. So that's the left showing exactly who they are, mocking death and aiming their venom at Trump. Now, look at the response from the White House where President Trump orders the flags lowered half-staff for Lindsey Graham. By order of the president, flags of the White House are lowered to half-staff in memory of the late Senator Lindsey Graham. So after the formal tribute from President Trump, the big question turns to what really happened. Laura Loomer raising alarms after Graham's Ukraine trip and asking whether the death needs a full investigation. Here's the question: did Russia just poison Lindsey Graham? There seriously needs to be an investigation. Russia just sent a delegation to Khomeini's funeral in Tehran, where the IRGC and funeral organizers were calling for myself, Laura Loomer, President Trump, and Senator Graham to be assassinated. Lindsey Graham was in Ukraine one day ago calling for Russian sanctions bill that he claimed the White House supports. Now he's suddenly dead from a random illness, according to staff. Did Russia just murder a U.S. senator? That's the question.
We've reached agreement with the White House on a version of the Russian sanctions bill that they will support. It means it's going to become law. So when I get back to Washington, I'm going to go with Senator Blumenthal to the Republican and Democratic leader to see if we can find time to move this Russian sanctions package that would give tools to President Trump to help end this war. There's some things we can do on the technology front to build on the lethality of Ukraine to protect itself from ballistic missile attack. If we did that, combined with creating tools to punish those countries that prop up Putin, that make money off this war, then I think we've got the best chance since I've been coming here in the last 5 years to get Putin to the peace table.
And within hours, Lindsey Graham would be no more. So that's Graham talking in Kyiv about sanctions on Russia. And now the threat picture gets even darker. Libs of TikTok has the image showing Iranian agitators openly targeting Lindsey Graham just last week. They called for his assassination. Sooner or later, your heads will roll. Lindsey Graham's face with a target on it. So it wasn't just random chatter. There was a direct threat on Graham's life. Next, Loomer connects that warning to Russian voices, including a Putin ally, and even Tucker Carlson fallout that's raising questions. Not too long ago, she writes, Tucker Carlson interviewed Putin advisor Alexander Dugin, who called for Lindsey Graham to be assassinated. Dugin has since deleted the tweet. And just a few months ago, Tucker had blood splatter imagery of Lindsey Graham on his podcast to vilify him with the title, They're Hijacking MAGA. Oddly enough, around the same time this podcast aired, Dugin said the same thing about Graham, while Russian state media called for the pro-Ukraine senator to be assassinated. Last week, Iran and Russia called for Graham's assassination. One day after returning from Ukraine, he is now dead. Poison can cause someone to go into cardiac arrest. That's, of course, what the medical examiners have claimed. Was Lindsey Graham assassinated by Russia or Iran? That is the question. It's time for all these insane woke Reich podcasters with ties to Dugin be investigated by Kash Patel and Scott Pacent. It's obvious these podcasters all have coordinated and nearly identical messaging with Russia, and it's time for them to be investigated by the DOJ. Why was Tucker allowed to go to Russia to interview Putin and Dugin? What's the real story? So here is the post from Alexander Dugin that she is referring to. Better to kill this guy. He is the problem for Trump. The world will be better without him. Alexander Dugin's post since deleted. So explosive allegations, but now the move from online messaging to the federal response. FBI Director Kash Patel says the Bureau is assisting local authorities, putting every necessary resource on the case. Official post from the FBI Director. Senator Lindsey Graham was a devoted public servant, fierce defender of our nation, a true patriot who dedicated his life to the people of South Carolina and the United States. Our prayers are with his family and loved ones. The FBI is assisting local authorities and has made every resource necessary available. So the FBI is involved. The speculation is not slowing down. Mario Naval spotlights claims from a former CIA analyst, Larry Johnson, who says the timeline around Graham's death just does not add up. Rumors are flooding the web about the sudden death of Senator Lindsey Graham. According to some, the #1 Senate supporter of Ukraine may have died on Ukrainian soil, and admitting it would shatter the entire war narrative. Former CIA analyst Larry Johnson says his sources inside the National Military Command Center were saying it openly. Listen to this.
I'm going to ask you this. I know you're avoiding speculating, but just to see where your mind is at, have you got any theories in mind that you're considering?
No, I mean,
everything you're pointing out.
it could have been a heart attack. I'm just saying the heart attack was suffered. He probably suffered a heart attack when he was hearing explosions in Kyiv. It's something he's probably never heard before.
But why would they lie about that? Why would they?
Why do they lie
Trying to
about
twist the story.
anything? I mean, show me, we just talked about how they're lying about the Strait of Hormuz being open.
Yeah, but that's
What's one more lie?
Yeah, but I'm saying usually there's a reason to lie. You want to lie to make it seem you're winning a war, to manipulate markets.
Yeah,
etc.
so why? You want to admit that you're the number one senator proponent of Ukraine died in Ukraine in the aftermath of the Russian military strikes? Well, that doesn't fit the narrative too well. And all I can tell you is I've also heard from people who had access to the Pentagon, to generals in the command center, National Military Command Center. They were walking around talking today saying he died in Kyiv.
When did he? But when did he visit the drone factory? I'm curious. Can you tell me again?
Friday afternoon, but I don't know the time.
So if you visit Friday afternoon, so let me see. Because he might have visited. So when do you think he left Kyiv to Poland?
The earliest he could have left would have been the following morning, Saturday morning. But again, why would Graham fly 20 hours, fly and take a train for 20 plus hours to do just a tour of a drone factory, and then the next morning get back up and repeat that whole 21 hour journey?
So that's the question being raised here. The theory that Graham may have actually died in Kyiv, but not everyone's buying it. Next, a blunt pushback arguing this may have been a sudden medical event, not a hidden foreign operation. BS, if he died in Kyiv, it'd be just as hard to hide the casket getting home over the long train ride military plane. He loved to eat Chick-fil-A, waffle fries, fried chicken sandwiches. That's not smart for someone over 70. Atherosclerosis is a killer. You can't even see it or feel it until you get the sudden heart attack. For example, a person doesn't even need to be overweight. Just Google Jim Fix. So the rebuttal cuts against the online frenzy. And now we turn to the voice that matters most. President Trump reacts to the passing, calling him a friend.
Well, I don't feel great. He was a great guy, and he was a friend. He would call me all the time. He would just I'd say, stop calling me Lindsey. It was amazing. He just didn't stop. And he was a worker. He was a total workaholic politician. Now, some people don't call that work. Some people call that a lot of talking. But everybody loved him. He was good on the other side. If I had Democrat problems, he could solve them. He was a man of all different abilities, actually. And he was a nice man. He was a great guy.
Nice man, a great guy. President Trump's first tribute was personal. Next, he goes deeper. Talks about his loyalty, his role in key fights like Kavanaugh, and the one moment Trump says Graham regretted most immediately.
Which didn't surprise me at all. And he said, I'm back, and told me a couple of things. He was very strong on fighting for the Save America Act. And I'm not sure if he was at the beginning, but he really became the primary advocate for it. And I think he would have felt the same way about terminating the filibuster, which was so important. I mean, it's so important. The Republicans have to do it. It's so insane. Otherwise, we're going to have a shutdown in September, and we have a debt ceiling problem coming in 2 years. And if you terminate the filibuster, everything goes away. And we do anything we want. We pass everything we want, and the Democrats are going to do it. And he started to see that because he was against, because everyone's sort of against, not everybody, 20% were against. He was one, and now he was starting to say, terminate the filibuster. Otherwise, we're going to have, these continued ridiculous, crazy, Trump deranged. They're Trump deranged. These people suffer from a very fine disease known as Trump derangement syndrome. And he was seeing that. And
Mr. President, did you notice
he was really come a long way on the terminating the filibuster, which is the single smartest thing we could do, because then you'd get everything. That's bigger. But even if we took the small loaf, and the small loaf is the Save America Act, and it's very simple. It's voter ID, It's proof of citizenship, and it's no voter ballot. It's the ballot. Look what happened to the kid in California. They send a million ballots. Nobody know where they came from.
Yeah.
So it's you don't do mail-in ballots unless you're in the military, you're in deployment, you're in the military. You don't do them if somebody's sick, if somebody's disabled, or if you go on vacation. You get a pass. We make it nice and easy.
But Mr. President, did you notice anything different?
They find millions and millions of ballots. It's impossible. Spencer Pratt came up to my office. He said he thought he won. I said, why didn't you complain? He didn't know who to complain to. But what they did to that guy was unbelievable. He's a nice guy. He worked so hard. And they found millions of ballots, and they took the election away from him. They almost did it to Steve Hilton. I complained. I got the U.S. attorneys involved and the FBI. And as soon as because he was, they were putting out reports. Steve Hilton is starting to fade. He's running, as you know, for governor of California. And they said, Steve Hilton. I said, here we go. They're going to find ballots. And they said he was starting to fade. He wasn't fading. He was the opposite. And I put the U.S. attorney involved. They said, well, no, in 2 weeks. Can you imagine? This is the week after the election. They're saying he's starting to fade. And then I got the U.S. attorney involved. And they didn't know in 2 weeks. They let it be known an hour later.
So, Mr. President, real quickly, did you notice anything different from Lindsey?
He's going to be in the runoff.
On the phone?
These elections are very dishonest, and you can't have a country unless you have really honest elections. And when people don't want to have voter ID, when people don't want to have proof of citizenship, it's only for one reason, because they want to cheat, and they're very good at it.
So Trump lays out Graham's record. Now comes another tribute from the president, this time boiling it down to one message. America lost a man who worked nonstop for the country.
We lost a great man. He was a great man. He was a great politician, and he was a kind man. And you know who really lost? Israel, Ukraine, a lot of countries that he really fought for. And they lost somebody who was very special. But the real loser was the United States of America. We lost a great person, a kind person, a very smart person, and a great. They ask me sometimes, what do you think? He was a great politician. We have mostly bad politicians. We have stupid politicians all over the place. This guy was a great politician.
So after honoring Graham as a patriot and a fighter, the next story shifts to what comes next. Barina Morello reports that Trump is urging South Carolina's governor to name Graham's sister Darlene as interim senator, which we can now confirm has occurred. From the closet to the coffin, Margaret Cho sneered after Lindsey Graham died. There it is, the mask off. A U.S. senator is gone. Trump is standing there saying, if I had a Democrat problem, he could solve them. And Cho decides to grave dance. It's comedy, and it's sick, really. Then right next to that filth, you've got Iranian threat imagery, naming Lindsey Graham as the target just last week, and Laura Loomer blasting the Dugan Post, calling to kill him. So while Trump lowered flags and honored a man he spoke with constantly, the left celebrity gutter and America's foreign enemies flooded the same swamp of hatred. That's the split screen. One side mourns a patriot, the other side mocks death, farms, chaos, and treats an American senator like disposable propaganda. Henry McMaster just picked his sister to replace him, and Kash Patel must get answers, and that's where this goes now. We honor Lindsey Graham the way President Trump honored him, with respect, with seriousness, and with the plain truth that we lost a great man, but we do not let Margaret Cho, anonymous rumor hustlers, Iranian agitators, or Russia-adjacent propagandists hijack this with filth and circus smoke. You and I can hold two thoughts at once: mourn the man, demand the facts. Trump already showed the country how a leader acts. Half staff of the White House, direct tribute, no games, no ghoulish performance. Now the institutions need to match that standard, investigate every threat, lock down every lead. And South Carolina is now sending somebody into that seat who backs Trump, loves the country, and won't fold when the jackals start circling. And we're not folding either. I've read your messages. I understand your frustration. You're not getting notifications. You can't find us in the feeds anymore. And that's why we set up this number. Thousands of patriots have already signed up to make sure they get notifications from me instead of YouTube. Text raw feed to 844-840-4963. and get on the list so you stay in the loop.
The system controls information. Information control is power. They don't want you to see this. The truth only survives together. They don't want this shared. Share this now.